Bryn, I begin with you. Our discussion has changed a bit this evening to where I was going to go with all of you now. So what do we make of this Gilead news? You have the Boeing news as well. The president has laid out his plan. Futures are surging. What does it all mean?
Well, I mean, I think we have good days and we have bad days. And, you know, the Gilead Remdesivir has been out there for a while. And so it's wonderful to see, you know, in the Chicago hospital that they're seeing such great results. And I think that, you know, ultimately, you know, as investors, a lot of us have a lot more idle time. And I think an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And we tend to go to these horrible headlines. But the reality is, you know, the ingenuity is there from these companies. It's going to take patience. That Boeing is going to start reopening. I think ultimately you're going to see, you know, in these individual cities, whether it's Houston, where the Starbucks has already been open, and around the country, where you're going to see these smaller openings. And I don't think you're going to see a big opening across the country, but it is little green shoots that we see out there. And I think ultimately investors need to have a plan for things being less worse, not better, just less worse.
Okay, Jim, those viewers who watch Halftime know that you're sitting in 10% cash now. You are waiting for a pullback to deploy some of that capital, and maybe some of our viewers are doing the same. But what now with the news that we've brought tonight on multiple fronts? How does that factor into your thinking about the stock market?
I'm going to sit tight for now, Scott. I mean, it is good news, but the more I think about it, the more I just want to temper things here. At the heart of the problem for the economy is that we have to be socially distant. I'm really happy to hear the news at Gilead. I mean, that is progress, but that doesn't keep people from catching the coronavirus. And I think until we have a vaccine, it's going to be difficult for people to be in close proximity to one another. So that means airplanes can't be full. That means offices can't be full. Restaurants can't be full. Those are the sort of things that will hold the economy back, lead us into a U-shaped recovery. I don't want to be a negative Nelly here. You know, the U-shaped recovery is reasonable, particularly with what the Fed and Congress are doing to support the economy. But I think the V-shaped recovery is just too much for me to really sink my teeth into. But I love the news on Boeing. I have to look at the other side, though, and say the problem right now isn't that the airline industry doesn't have enough planes. It's that it doesn't have enough passengers. And that's at the heart of what Boeing's got to deal with.
Good to see manufacturing, though, picking up, at least in some sense. Bryn, lastly to you, the Gilead news, does it make it more difficult now to be more negative on the market? I get that there's this disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street. The stock market's gains do not reflect the pain on Main Street or anywhere close to what Steve Leisman and I were just discussing about these jobless claim numbers. But news like Gilead can be meaningful in the more medium-term view of the stock market if it's sustainable.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the stock market is a market of stocks. And so if you look at the financials, they're down 30%. Small caps are still down 30%. Really, it's the big tech names, you know, that have held up, the QQQs, NVIDIA, you know, we've talked about them many times. And so I think it's like individual securities and different sectors tell two different stories. And so I think ultimately with the financials still down 30, you know, the Gilead is it's been out there for a while that Remdesivir was a good drug. It's nice that these smaller test cases are coming out positive, you know, but ultimately, I don't know if we need a vaccine or just antivirals, because it seems like if you look at the studies, everybody, the population all has it. And so that being said, I think you take one day at a time, but you're as an investor, you have to be pragmatic, be flexible. Don't be dogmatic here and just dig your heels into what you think is going to happen. Just take the news and have your narrative and be patient. And I think patience is the best way to get through this.